Shalom. We're in Parashah Ki Tizeh. That means when you go out. And the context is when you go out to war. And it ends in chapter 25. It says, when you go out to war, you need to forget Amalek. And it has to do with the flesh. So you need to remember not to forget, to overcome the flesh, if you like. So in this parashah, everything is about the war. Now, the war is defined by the conflict, the opposition between the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. So every time there's a war, there are two opposing forces that share the same space and time, and that result in energy flowing. It's like a high pressure system and a low pressure system that's close to each other, and then it starts to cause a wind, a strong wind of airflow. And that strong wind, in the context of the ocean, the sea, or the nations, result in storms. And a storm is similar to a war. It's something of great force, great power, where one energy flows in relation to the other energy, and the one wants to consume the other. So that is the conflict or the war that is going to happen during the time of crossing the Jordan. Now, in Israel's time, after they cross the Jordan, they will have to face the enemy. But also the concept of the Jordan. Now, if you can remember, the Jordan is a force that flow from four heads that come down, and it flows into the lowest point in the earth, which is the Dead Sea, which is a symbol, prophetic picture of Sheol, the place of the dead. And crossing the Jordan is basically to cross over into the promised land without being affected by being pulled in by the forces of this strong river running into Sheol. So that is the concept of crossing the Jordan. That's why it's important to be with the covenant people, to be with the ones with the covenant, where the river will open up and they will walk through in dry land. They won't be affected by the Great Tribulation or the war. Now, in the context of that, there's a lot of information within this parashah. Now, this parashah is sandwiched in between two themes of war, and that implies that all the commandments within are in context of this war as well. And everything we see in there, there's a lot of commandments regarding the marriage covenant, also about stoning a rebellious son. There's a few other things in there as well. So it has to do with conflict, it has to do with covenant relationships and the breaking of covenant relationships and the reforming of covenant relationships. And that is where the big shakeout will happen. Now, during the time of the tribulation, that's exactly that will happen. Covenant relationships will be strong, and it will be even made more strong during this time. And then there's going to be people who's going to break off from their covenant relationship with Yahweh as a result of this, because they have believed a lie, and many of them will go astray because of the lies that they've been taught and the lies they believed, and they will curse Yahweh. Some of them will curse Yahweh because how can whatever I believe in, it doesn't work, you know, it's not for me, it's a lie, it's nothing, there's nothing out there, there's no God kind of thing. Or if they believe there's God, he's against me and I'm opposing him now with my, you know, with the decision I make, and I will go with the flow, you know, that will go against him. But the problem is the flow is pulling you down to Sheol, the place of the dead. Now, those who will be alive after the Great Tribulation, they will enter the 7th millennium, or the next wilderness cycle, as we discussed. And then there will be a resurrection at the beginning of that, or during the end of the Great Tribulation, which is the first resurrection, which is also symbolic of crossing the Jordan without being affected by the Jordan, and moving into the household of Yahweh. And then there will be a second resurrection after the 1,000 years, prior to the 8th millennium, and that will basically be from Sheol, and the dead will join the living that are within the second wilderness experience, and then the final battle will happen, the final war, and then the kingdom of Yahweh will come down with his house, the New Jerusalem, and the people will be situated on the outside, those who come out of the 7th millennium, who have not been destroyed, who didn't rebel, and those who are within the city, of course, they are the bride. They're going to be the priesthood and also the kings that will rule over the nation under the headship of the King of Kings, who is Yeshua, the Messiah. Now, what I discovered in this parasha, I just looked at the first verse of Kizeh, and it is about the beautiful women that beautify themselves during the time of war to save their own lives, so that they can be chosen as brides, as spoil that will come out of this battle. So that is the way they preserve their lives. But what Yahweh said, they need to shave their heads, they need to cut their nails, and they need to take off their beautiful garments and put on sackcloth and ashes, or whatever basic dresses they have to wear, as a sign of humiliation. And I have looked into the word for shaving in the Hebrew, as well as the Gematria, as well as cutting the nails, and that happens during a period of a month. I also looked at the Gematria of a month. Now, I'm not going to reveal all the little nuances and things that are in there, but it was fascinating to see that the Gematria of each one of those words still support the theme of war, still support the theme of the Great Tribulation and the 7th millennium, second wilderness experience. It was just fascinating to see that reconfirmed, and every time I discover things like this, it just gives me confidence that the prophetic picture that's been outlaid over the few cycles I've been through in the Torah portions are now being confirmed and reconfirmed, and that is blatantly seen within the meanings of the Gematria. So I'll just leave that for now. I'm going to share that on this Saturday, on the Sabbath, discussing the double Torah portion, which is Shoftim, Judges, as well as Kitise, which is when you go out to war. So I hope